Salve omnes and welcome back. This video will continue on from where we left off in the previous video, picking up at Aeneid Book 4, line 296, and going through until line 330. This will cover Dido's comments to Aeneas upon her discovery that he was trying to leave. So, with that out of the way, let's do this. Okay, moving on then. Now we come to Regina. At Regina dolos quis fallere posita mantem praesensit. But the queen, who can deceive a lover? Possit is subjunctive. We are not going to translate it as a subjunctive, should or let or something like that. It's being read as a plain old indicative. Okay, who could possibly deceive a lover? The Regina praesensit dolos. She sensed or figured out the trickeries, all right, the tricks, and she first grasped the motos futuros, the future actions, fearing, right, being afraid that everything was safe. So although, it's like although everything was safe, she was nervous. Okay, she was anxious. Impia fama. Oh, here's fama again. Yes, indeed. Fama rears her ugly head and feathers and all the rest again. Impious fama. Detulit these things to the raging one. So this would be the indirect object. She detulit, fama carried, so reported, said these same things to the raging one. What did she report to the raging one? That's what follows here. This chiastic arrangement of four words. The fleet was being armed, and a departure, a cursum, a path, a course, was being prepared. Both infinitives are passive, not deponent. So how does Dido deal with this? Well, saeviti nops animi. She rages, something like bereft of her mind, right? So without the benefit of her mind. We know ops, meaning wealth or resources, and in, the prefix that negates it. So she has lost the resources of her mind. Animi could be a partitive genitive here. It could also be that older archaic locative form that we saw when we encountered Iarbas, who was amens animi. He was out of his mind, in his mind. So it's possible that this animi is the same thing, but you could just read it as a partitive genitive with inops. That's totally fine. So, raging out of her mind and incensed, totam per urbem, through the whole city, bachatur. She rages like a bacchant. Okay, so she goes wild like a bacchant. Sure enough, then we get the epic simile that expands on this idea that Dido is like a bacchant, okay, like a Maenad, a follower of Bacchus. Just as a bacchant, theos, okay, theos. This is a follower of Bacchus. This is nominative because the word comes from Greek, and this is fine as a nominative in Greek, nominative singular. Having been excita, so stirred up, you could say excited, that's fine. Stirred up, roused up, riled up by the sacris that have been commotis, by the sacred acts or rituals that have been set in motion. Okay? You could read sacris commotis as an ablative absolute. That would be totally fine. When triaterica orgia. So these orgia here, I know it gives us the word orgy, but it just means rituals or religious rites that are triaterica. This means happening every third year. Now, just a quick note about counting. The Bacchic rites were celebrated every 2 years, but Virgil is counting inclusively, so he's including the first year. So that's why he says triaterica, right? Happening every 3 years. When the every 3 year, when the biannual rites rouse up, okay, or set in motion when Bacchus is heard, okay, another ablative absolute, audito Baccho, and this is referring to the fact that they would shout out Bacchus's name at the beginning of the rituals, we think. So literally, with Bacchus having been heard, with the name Bacchus having been heard, and nighttime Kitharon, so nocturnal Kitharon, so Mount Kitharon in Greece at night, shouts, like the mountain actually shouts, or we would say echoes maybe, with the clamor, right? Because of the clamor, by means of the clamor. So that is what Dido is like, raging through the city, like a follower of Bacchus, once the rites have started. So out of her mind, crazed, raging, liable to fall upon some unsuspecting innocent man or woman or animal and tear them to pieces limb from limb with her bare hands and eat them, because that is what the Bacchants were said to do. Finally, though, right, after having her rage through the city, she compels Aeneas, she approaches Aeneas, she attacks Aeneas almost, with these words, right? Furthermore, finally, ultro. And now everything that follows is Dido speaking to Aeneas. So here we go. Dissimular tiam sperasti perfide tantum, posse nefas tacitusque mea decedere terra. So we start off with the vocative, perfide, treacherous one. Did you really hope, right, etiam, get the etiam in there. Did you really hope that you could, all right, posse is going to run over, is going to rule over these two other infinitives, dissimulare and decedere. Did you really hope that you could hide such an unspeakable thing, okay, as the object of dissimulare? Did you really think that you could conceal such an unspeakably evil thing? And now tacitus here goes back to sperasti, right? But we can read it with decedere. That's totally fine. All right. Did you hope that you could quietly depart from my land? Once again, an adjective, tacitus, going with the subject, but being read as an adverb, right? It happens all the time in Latin, as we render it into English. So, did you honestly think you could get away with it, she asks. Then she asks, did not, we see this tricolon, right? Neck, 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 the anaphora as well. And everything is going with tenet, and then te is the object. Does our love not hold you? Does the right hand, dextera, once given, we read quondam, this adverb with data, the participle, right? Do the right hands once given not hold you? Does Dido, being about to die, future active infinitive, infinitive participle, future active participle with Dido, by means of a cruel death, something to that effect, not hold you, right? Do these things not affect you, right? It could be a physical hold, like do they not keep you here? It could also be an emotional hold. Do they not have any power over you anymore? Okay. Quin etiam. This means, quin is a great word. Quin is a word that has a force kind of like, oh, but no, all right? Something to that effect. So when we read quin etiam, it's as if Dido has just answered her own question, all right? And then she goes on to talk about other things. So she just got done asking, do none of these things keep you here? Oh, no, indeed, right? Right, quin etiam. Oh, no, indeed. Okay, you hasten, right? Properos governs these two infinitives, moliri and ire. All right, so coming after quin etiam, oh, no, but indeed, you are in a hurry to set your fleet in motion, right? This is this verb moliri again, we saw it above. You are in a hurry to set your fleet in motion. We would say under the winter star or during the winter star. This can be an ablative of time when, okay? Because the wintry star, the winter season, was not a time that you sailed on the Mediterranean. So she's bringing up the fact that he's about to set sail in the worst possible conditions. You are also eager, right, hastening to go over the deep, right, in the midst of the aquilonibus. So again, this would be the north winds, the aquilo, which brought the bad winter storms that made sailing on the Mediterranean a bad idea once you were out of season. So it's wintertime basically, and Dido is pointing out, you're in quite a hurry, aren't you, cruel one, right? Another evocative. You're in quite a hurry to set your fleet in motion under the winter star and to go through the deep in the midst of these horrible north wind driven storms. Aren't you, cruel one? Okay, continuing on. Now, she then basically says, why? Right? Like what is it? Why? And then we have these questions. All right, so we're going to start here. This is her question, right? Or this is the condition, excuse me. This is the condition, and then this is her question. So maybe we'll start with the question. Would Troy still have to be sought, right? Would Troy be sought, be pursued, understood by you, right? Would Troy be pursued by you by means of your fleet over the wavy deep, right? Undosum, literally the wave-filled deep. If, okay, so would you still be seeking Troy, is how we might say it in English, if you were not looking for foreign soil and unknown homes? That is to say, if ancient Troy still stood. Okay, so Dido is asking here, if you didn't have to go find some new place to live, and if Troy itself still existed, would you be seeking Troy by means of your fleet, by sailing there over the wavy deep? Would you really be leaving if you didn't say that you had somewhere to go? And then that gets us to this question, mene fugis, right? Are you fleeing me? Oh, and then we get this sentence right here. Hyperbaton, hyperbaton. Yes, indeed. So much hyperbaton. So much radical separation of elements that belong together. Starting with ego, the subject, and wait for it, oro, the verb. And everything that comes between hinges on ego, oro. I beg, or I pray, or I beseech. There's the te. Okay, tons of hyperbaton. So now that we have our basic structure, I beseech you, I beg you, now we can go into some details. So let's start with these per expressions. Per has lacrimas, per dextram tuam, per connubia nostra, per inceptos humineos. These are the things that I beg you by or on behalf of. On behalf of these tears of mine, I beg you. On behalf of your right hand, I beg you. When, she stops off to say, when I myself have left nothing else now, so I myself have nothing else left, we would say in English, for miserable me. Okay, so she has no claim on him basically anymore. That's why she has to invoke her tears and his promise, right? Dextram, being the right hand, is standing by metonymy for the promise that he made, right? Because in order to make a promise, you have to offer your right hand and clasp hands. That's how you one of the ways you swear an oath. I beseech you by our marriage. I beseech you by the wedding songs that were taken up or begun, right? So therefore sung, by the wedding songs that were sung. If, now she changes tactic just a little bit, si bene quid de te merui. Now we know that quid after si, don't mind the bene in the way, is actually aliquid, because after si, nisi, numen, ne, ali takes a holiday. So if I have deserved anything well, so bene goes with merui as the adverb, right? So if I have well deserved, something like that is really what it says. If I have well deserved anything from you, de te, or, still with the if there was anything for you of mine, going with the quicquam, that was sweet. Okay, so if anything of mine was sweet to you, then she breaks out her request in the form of this imperative. Miserere domus labentis. Now, domus labentis is genitive, because the verb misereor, which is deponent, hence this somewhat odd-looking imperative form, miserere, second person singular of a deponent should be misereris, but the imperative form of that, the passive imperative form in Latin, in the singular, is re, just re, re. So miserere, have mercy, have pity. And in Latin, miserior wants a genitive as its object, domus labentis. So she is saying, take pity upon this house, my house, which is labentis, which is collapsing, all right, falling in. And, she says, now this istam does not go with miserere, because it's not genitive. It goes with mentem as the object of this verb exue. Change, or yeah, something like change. Change that mind, right? Change your mind. Change your plans. Change what you have set in your mind. She is saying to him, if, just like she did up here, with the si bene quid de te merui and si fuit aut tibi quicquam dulce meum, if any, because we know quis is aliquis, if any place, we'll throw a fuit in there because we need a verb, if any place yet exists, we might say, we might throw the tibi in there too, just to round it out, for you. If any place is left for you, if you have any space left in your heart, we might say, for prayers. Okay, because that is what Dido is doing. She is praying to Aeneas. If you have any space left in your heart for prayers, change your mind, right? Decide something else. Okay, continuing on. Now she's on to a different topic, talking about how this relationship with Aeneas has affected her. Te propter. Your note tells you that this is another example of prolepsis. The te, in the accusative case, is in the accusative case because it is part of the prepositional phrase propter te. It should be propter te. By putting the te first through prolepsis in front of the preposition, it's highlighting Aeneas, right? Obviously. You. You
are the one! You are the one! What do you think? You think they're so simple, huh? You think it is just like this and like that, and that's all it is, and no c'è niente nel centro?
Propter te, because of you. The Libyan races and the rulers of the nomads hate me, we could say. This odere is oderunt, right? It's the alternate form. And the Tyrians are also quite angry at me, right? We can understand a sunt here, or fuerunt, right? The Tyrians, my own people, have become angry, hateful towards me. Te propter eundem. This time eundem is going with te. So, literally on account of the same you, but, in English we might say on account of you also. Pudor, we understand pudor meus. Pudor extinctus. And we can supply the est, right? My shame, or modesty, is gone, it is extinct, it is wiped out. And we could say so is, right? My fama prior, this is also going to be extincta. My previous reputation, presumably my previous good reputation, is destroyed. My reputation by which alone, okay, this sola, we do a quick scan of the line, the A in sola comes out being long, so we know it's ablative going with qua. Fama is the antecedent. My reputation, by means of it alone, I was going towards the stars. So I was on the path to be great. I was on the path to be divine, practically, by means of my reputation alone. But that is now gone. Propter te, because of you, she says. Continuing right along. We're almost done. Cui. Now she's back to questions. Okay. Cui me moribundam deseris hospes. all right? You guessed, right? We know that hospes is referring to Aeneas because it's nominative and Diceres is second person singular. So you guessed are abandoning me, dying, moribundam, dying. Okay, this is not actually a gerund or a gerundive. This is just a straight up adjective, moribundus aum. It means dying. Cui, for what? Or for whom, even? For what? For what are you abandoning me, dying? Guest, let's come back to hospes. Guest, like the question is, why is she calling him a guest, like a hospes? This is a very just formal and distant term. She was married to this guy, or at least she thought. But now she's just calling him a guest, a traveler, a visitor, because, let's start here, because only this name remains from husband, right? She can no longer look at him as her husband. He's just a traveler now. This name is all that remains from the name of husband that I used to call you, right? It's all gone. Quid moror? Why do I delay? What am I waiting for? On is just a question word, so we don't need to worry about translating it necessarily. We might read it with on and then out, so kind of an either or situation getting set up here if we really want to translate it. And it all triggers off of quid moror. What am I waiting for? Am I waiting for, or in this case with doom and the subjunctive, we understand until. Am I waiting around until my brother Pygmalion destroys my walls? Or am I waiting around until, doom is still in force here for Gaetulus Iarbus, until Gaetulian Iarbas carries me, is understood as going with captam, carries me off as his captive, we might say. Is that what I'm waiting for? But if only, saltum si, but if only, okay? And then the qua here, of course, is aliqua. This is nominative, singular, not ablative, okay? And it's going with suboles down here. But if only some offspring had been literally seized, we would say, right? Taken by me from you, or for me from you, right? Me, he's kind of a dative of interest. From you before your departure, ante fugam. Okay, if only somehow some offspring had been seized by me from you before your flight. If, again, kind of only, some, or again any, right? Because it's aliquis, some little Aeneas were playing, again, for me, or with respect to me, in my halls, aula, right, place where. A little Aeneas who, nevertheless, would bring back you by means of his face. So in other words, he would look like you, and therefore he would remind me of you. If only there was some little Aeneas for me playing in my halls. Non equidum nino captac deserta viderer. I would not at least seem entirely, omnino is the adverb, right? Entirely, we almost would give her capta, captured, but like overcome, right? Beaten almost. I would not seem so entirely defeated and abandoned. If only I had some little version of you to stay with me and remind me of you before you depart.